Hey guys, this is sassy singer-songwriter Lauren Flaherty, and this is part 2 of my 3-part series, Understanding PROs. A lot of people want to know which PRO they should pick. So as I showed in my last video, PROs are kind of like Coke and Pepsi. There's two major ones, ASCAP and BMI, that you'll see almost all the time. And then there's SESAC, which I'm calling iced tea, because it's just a little bit different, although it is in the same ballpark. So ASCAP and BMI are actually quite similar, whereas SESAC has a few differences. The biggest difference to me is that SESAC pays monthly, whereas the other organizations pay quarterly. That being said, SESAC is small and it's boutique, so it's very possible that you might not get affiliated with them, or you might get rejected even if you're doing a lot of great stuff. I actually met with them before I was with a PRO, and I had an excellent long meeting, and they were super nice, and it was at just about the nicest building I'd ever seen at that point. And it didn't work out because I didn't have anything that was ready for a big popular release at the time. I would have loved to have had that. That's part of what I was trying to work towards, but it isn't something that I had. So thankfully I ended up kind of circling back, and I did end up with BMI, which I've been with for my whole career, full disclosure, and that's been great. And BMI is actually in 7 World Trade Center, which is now the most beautiful building I've ever been in. Yay! You can go on their websites and you can take a look at the different locations that they're in. All of them are in the big industry towns, so New York, Nashville, Los Angeles, also Atlanta, Miami, and a lot of them are in Puerto Rico as well, and London. But for instance, if you do live in Puerto Rico and SESAC's not there, then you probably don't want to affiliate yourself with them, because unless if you're flying to New York all the time, or flying to a different one of those all the time, it's not going to make a lot of sense for you. I'm in Boston, so having a PRO that was affiliated and had a New York office was very convenient for me. I read an article once that I did not really agree with, and it said, whatever you do, don't just pick which PRO comes to your showcase and buys you a beer first. Okay, so that's kind of a silly example, and I get it. That being said, if you have multiple PROs coming to your showcase and one of them is demonstrating more of a long-term connection with you, that's great. Or if you just have one PRO come to your showcase and the other ones aren't returning your call, or even, no, I'm just gonna get real. If you have one person from a PRO that comes to your showcase, that might be where you wanna go. This is not how things actually work. We're not all in a bidding war. If you're in a bidding war, I really don't think you'd be watching this. So I would say that if you feel you have a personal connection, then go ahead and do that. The only thing I would say to keep in mind is that not everybody works at a PRO for the length of their career. Some people, they work in publishing, then they work at a PRO for a while, and then they might go back to publishing for, a whole variety of reasons. So pick the one that you really want to go with. Don't just pick the one that maybe your friend's friend works at, because that might only last a year or two. So up for how should I join and when should I join? The answers are pretty easy. You can join at their website, so it's just going to be ascap.com, bmi.com, sesac.com, and they'll actually have a join feature right there where you can click on that. You should be able to do everything online, but if you have an internet restriction, you can go ahead and I think you can request a paper application, things like that. You can call them and go from there. One thing to keep in mind with calling them and also with picking locations is that you're supposed to work with the office who's closest to you. So again, for me, that's New York. If I think of my question that I want to ask them about at, let's say it's like 7 p.m. East Coast time, they're closed. So yes, it is allowed for me to call the Los Angeles office and ask them, because they're still open, because they're on, West Coast time. But they might say, you really have to talk to your local office about that, and that's just how it is sometimes. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can only be with one organization, and that's actually worldwide. So I found out I was getting some royalties from Australia and London, and I mean, obviously, I was pumped. That was great. I found out about it on my statement from my PRO, and then I started trying to do some organizational paperwork about, how did these royalties come about? Is there a DJ I can send a thank you letter to? Because, I'm not too cool to send a thank you letter to someone nice enough to play my music. I will send them all the thank you letters. And I did get a hold of Australia, who said, okay, we can help you to this extent, but then you really have to go through your home office. A question sometimes people have is, what if I'm just getting started? Can I still affiliate with a PRO? Yes, and in my opinion, they've actually made it easier, which is excellent to hear. Previously, you had to show that you had written a work that had been publicly performed, and that sounded really intimidating, and you're thinking, well, geez, how am I going to get to that level without all the stuff in between? But the procedures have been streamlined so that now if you have a song that is for the public consumption, which can include just posting something on YouTube, or if it's been played at a music venue, which could include a neighborhood open mic, anything like that, you can make note of that. Make it sound as nice as possible. Not, I'm sorry, the open mic was really poorly attended because it was raining and I got in a fight with my roommate. No, they don't need to know that. If the open mic is at a venue such as, Cambridge's Club Pessim that has a great reputation, I'm going to write down Club Pessim. I'm not just going to write down open mic kind of around Boston. So don't let it put you off. Go for it, apply for it soon, and make it sound as nice as you can while still being accurate. I mean, at this point, if something's performed on YouTube, if it's performed locally, or your friend's band covers your song and then posts it online or plays it at a show, especially at a venue that maybe has a music license or just something that people have heard of as opposed to, your living room, then that's cool. Just go for it. And if it's in your living room, put it online. There you go. So there are two main sources of income when you are with a PRO, and the first is getting paid from recordings. So to get paid from recordings, you would register the song with your PRO, and then when it is played online or on the radio or on television, the people and companies that know what music is being played within their organization are supposed to put that information back to the PRO. So in television, it's called a cue sheet. In radio, it's called a playlist. And then separate from that, you're going to have digital services, which are going to be things like Spotify or Pandora. And there are some differences between them in terms of how you get paid, because did somebody specifically say, I want to have the I've had too much caffeine song from Lauren Flaherty, or did I just come up because of the way that the computers put everything together? But they will say that it was played for this amount of time or in this level of rotation. And then that money will go back to the PRO. They do take a cut. I want to say it's 7%. So the organization will then make a note that I've had too much caffeine, was played, maybe in a certain level of rotation, if it's on the radio, or if it was a 12-second clip or a minute-and-a-half clip, which, pays more for television, or, what the digital stats are. And then that information goes back to the PRO. They take their cut, which is pretty small. Thank you for keeping that small. And then it gets passed on to you. ASCAP and BMI pay quarterly. SESAC pays monthly. And they also keep all of your royalty statements online, which I find to be really helpful, because sometimes if I want to see if something is earning more or less or when it started, then I can go and do that and just look up everything really quickly. So the way this stuff is online is actually very helpful. Second level of income from PROs, which is excellent, and it's kind of new, and I'm happy to talk about it. It is getting paid from gigs, and they can be your gigs or they can be somebody else's gigs. So if you had a hit song and everybody on earth wants to cover it, it's like the song of the summer and Taylor Swift's gonna cover it and everybody else is gonna cover it, that goes in their set list online, that then goes to their PRO, which then kicks back to your PRO that everybody and their mother is covering it. Okay, so that's the best case scenario. But what's probably gonna happen until that fancy scenario, what's probably going to actually happen for now is that you can list your own songs in your own set list using the organization, their website. So for instance, it's called BMI Live or ASCAP on Stage, or SESAC has Polestar software that will do it for you. And what that means is that if I play a bunch of small clubs and maybe I'm just kind of breaking even on everything, I can then put in all of my information and I'll get a kickback essentially from all of that. Because my songs were played at these licensed music venues, and it happens that I was the person who played them, but still they were played, they were heard by the public, they were consumed. And this is really awesome because I know people where this has enabled them to book their second mini tour, or to help with some recording costs, or to help with repairs. It's not a ton of money, but it can add up. And when you think about it, it's practically free money to go and get it, so why would you not? And also, I mean, when I was starting out with all of this, that was the first royalty check that I got, was just because I was gigging so much. And part of the reason I was gigging so much was because I didn't have any traction with television or radio at the time, where that was a good way to show that I was interested. And that was to do a lot of gigs. And I can't even tell you how good it felt when I got my first check and I put it right back into recording, and I sent them a nice email, and then they sent me a nice email, and it was just good. So in conclusion, I would say affiliate with a PRO as soon as possible. It's free or almost free. And just list all of your songs, list the writers and co-writers correctly. You don't have to be with the same PRO as your co-writer, so you don't have to pick it based on that. That's okay. And then just put in everything. Put in the gigs that you play, put in everything really, and just go from there. Up next will be about what you can expect from joining a PRO and what you should not expect. It's too much, it's unreasonable, you're cut off.